Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I have the opportunity to work on a Garcia Abumatic. It's the 330 edition. This reel was made in the 1980s. This was a flea market find from Scott. Scott had asked me to go over it, take a look at it. It is in beautiful condition. It doesn't appear to have been used much. But, well, if you have one of these reels, we're going to take it apart. We'll show you how it's made and how to service it and how to keep it running. So the basic premise of this reel, it is a closed face spin casting reel. You release the line by pressing down on a lever, and then you re-engage the crank to reset it and reel in. You start by removing the cap. The cap is a twist off cap. It comes off in a counterclockwise direction. And then, well, we'll take the rest of the reel apart, showing you how to do that and how to clean it up and service it. While I'm getting ready to take off some of the other pieces, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel if you do like to learn about how to service fishing reels, if you like to see how they're made, understand a little bit more about their manufacture and the like. Well, this is a good channel for you to learn on. I cover all kinds of fishing reels. Those include saltwater, freshwater, spinning reels, bait casting reels, and a little bit of everything else in between. And it's a good place for you to learn about the industry, about the reels themselves, and of course how to service one if you have one, how to keep it fishing for a long time. And maybe you've picked up an inherited reel or found one in a yard sale or something and you want to service it. This will show you how to do that as well. There's a little trip mechanism here that gets oiled. That's the one that's this. When you go to release, it's going to pull that in. It's in the in position now. And when you go to crank, it's going to push that out like this. And that's what's going to gather your line. I always recommend taking pictures before and during your disassembly of the reel. Those pictures are invaluable in helping you to understand what parts came off first and the orientation of the pieces and parts. And of course, if you're going to reassemble, I never recommend relying on your mind only to convince yourself that you know how to just go do that. Take the pictures. Also, you can go out to the internet. This is a picture of the top one is the picture of the 330. That's the reel we're working on now, and you can see we've removed the top cover. There's a spring nut that we took off and an assembly underneath. Here is your piece that we were just looking at with your rod, and now we're at the point of removing that clip. I always keep them on standby, whether I've done the reel once or many times, because you're just never quite sure. I tried doing one of these without the schematic the other day, and I got in trouble because, well, the person who had the reel open before me put a part in the wrong place. I just thought that part belonged there, and that was the cause of the issues. When I take pieces and parts off that are small, I like to put them into parts trays. In this case, I use the bottom of a fast food container. With that clip removed, we should be able to remove the spool now, simply by pulling up. And here's the first issue that we have. We have a lot of dried grease on the spool and on the post for the spool. I like to use the soft approach when I'm removing greases. The softer, the better. That means use a paper towel, use a cotton swab, use something non-abrasive if you can clean it with that. And to me, that always has a benefit to it in terms of not scarring any of the pieces along the way. Okay, well, that's the top of the assembly. We have two holes there. Doesn't matter which hole the stud goes in on remounting, but they need to go in one of those two holes. I'm going to put that back into the upper lid of the case, and we're going to go below now. We're going to work on this piece. So the first thing that we want to do is to, well, I like to remove the side plate because the side plate has two carriers. I think we'll take the handle off now while I still have something to grip. That's a 10mm nut. That nut comes off in the traditional counterclockwise manner. For those of you that don't know counterclockwise, let's turn the nut towards you, the nut cap in this case. put that into the box. The handle just walks right up. There is a little shield underneath there. And we should be able to take this cap off as well. That's all that's on the exterior side of this. Then we're going to turn around. We should have two screws that go through here that hold the case on. So let's go remove those two. These are flathead screwdriver screws. And I always like to tell folks to match the size of the slot to the screwdriver you are using. A lot of times folks will use an undersized blade for the slot, and what happens in that situation is that the slot gets butterflied over time because it didn't have the right amount of pressure in the right places. Those two screws are with the cap here. You do not need to remove this mechanism. There is a screw if you do need to remove it. What I like to do is just put a little flush of penetrating oil on there. I notice there's a little grease hanging out. Just clean that up a little bit. I'm going to put some oil onto the post where that lever moves up and down. That's going to go into my parts tray and let it just sit there and kind of dissolve the greases. Here's your mechanism inside the reel then, and we'll show you how to take that apart and how to keep that one functioning. This is a brake. You can see you can pull up on this to break the piece if you need to, kind of a manual drag setup. Okay, next up then we want to remove the axle shaft. To do that, there's an E-clip here that's holding a spring in this upper assembly in place, and that's going to need to be removed in order to remove the axle shaft. So I'm just going to grab a micro screwdriver and locate the center of that E-clip. I think I need a smaller screwdriver. Here's the clip that I was referring to. I'm going to take that, just lay that out for a moment. Then we can remove the spring clip, and we can push our axle shaft up and through, and then these two should just be hanging on here. It's a good place to take the picture. So this is the way that it works. This comes through the top, goes through this washer, so it's coming down through the washer inside the case. Then you have the gear. Clean these off in a moment. I just want to show you in case you've got yours in pieces. Then you have your spring, and then you have your E-clip. I'm going to put that whole assembly in my box here for now. And we should be able to push the main gear through at this point. And we can clean the rest of this reel. So on the back end of this, this is your anti-reverse cog. It's held in by a big E-clip. You don't need to pull that off. This is your main gear. You want to come back and clean that surface. Now if this was a drag setup on this reel, you certainly would want to remove and clean drags, but this is not a drag setup. And we want to come in here now and clean the old grease off the back. That's why it was important to remove that main gear. So even though the reel looks new, and I'm not even sure, maybe it's unused, I can't say for certain whether it's unused, but it kind of looks new. And the whole thing going on here, of course, is that the greases, the original greases, remember this reel is made in 1980s, so the original greases in this have likely gotten dried up, and you want to take care to clean, inspect, and then re-lube the reel. I just want to get that. We had two of those on there. And that's all you need to do with this case, just get it cleaned. Just checking the AR dog here. Okay, it just floats. Alright, well, that's the way it goes. Cool. Take your 2 washers, you can put those onto the main gear. We've wiped down the greases and oils and dirt on the main gear. Check the tracks, make sure that all of the teeth are in good condition. These are. If they're dirty, go ahead and use a hard bristle brush to pull the old greases and that out of here, but that's probably what's laying on the back of the case is the old grease, because they're not in the teeth of this. So we'll go ahead and reinstall this. So Scott's been finding a lot of reels at local flea markets out in the Southern California area. And that's a good way for you to learn about reels. Go to your local flea markets, yard sales, garage sales, and the like. And go ahead and purchase some at relatively inexpensive prices. There we go. We just want to check to make sure that we're working on this, and we are. And I think what I want to do right now, I'm going to put that handle back on, even though we didn't take it out in that sequence. But that handle is going to keep that gear from falling in as we do the rest of this. So let's go put that handle back on. Not quite sure what this little cap is, but it's there. It was there. Over the inside of the other cap. I'm going to thread it with my hands. I want to make sure that the threading goes even. Okay, with that main gear attached, we've got the components out for the axle shaft installation, with the exception of the E-clip. That'll be the last piece in. I want to grease this axle shaft right here. That's where the collar is that's going to go through, those 2 collar points. You don't need to get it below here. The spring is going to ride on that. Bring that partially through, just a little bit. And we have the washer, so you got to kind of work this case so that you can get the washer in there, just like that. Upside down and gravity works well. Then we have the gear, and the gear is keyed to the one side. There's a flat side, so you need to turn your axle shaft until you get that aligned, and then you need to mesh that with the main gear and bring the rest through, just like that. Well, I didn't grease that here as I was putting it in, so let's go ahead and get some grease on that as well. And now we want to bring in our spring and get the E-clip ready. Well, I wear a protective glove that helps me to keep the greases off. You can see a lot of grease that I got on there. But unfortunately, sometimes you just need the dexterity of your hand. So what we're going to do now, we're going to push that axle shaft through. I'm going to use my fingers to pull this down so that I have room for that E-clip. Doing this for the camera and trying to keep the strength on it. It's a little tough. And then there's a slot for the E-clip here. Sometimes finger pressure just like that works. You've got the E-clip in. Now you can release the spring. Now we're set properly for the operation. So let's turn this. We want to make sure that the gear is turning okay, which it is. Okay. Now we're back to just grabbing our side case. The side case is going to be installed opposite this piece. And this little lever, when you pull this out, this lever is going to be pushing this up like that. And that's what's going to move the spool piece in. You saw the rod that comes out of the top of the spool. It's going to move that in, and it's going to release when we trip back. So line this piece up with the bottom of the case there. Bring it over and on, just like that. Make sure you have a nice tight seal on the case. And grab the 2 screws. They're going to hold the case together. So it's a different design, of course, than what you would normally see in, say, a spin fishing reel or a bait casting reel. It's not very different in principle than most of the spin casters. And this addition here of this little brake for the drag, it's like kind of a manual drag, is sort of fun. That's this one. Again, to get the pressure while you're fishing, you just pull down like that, and that plastic piece is going to come up and rub against the side of the main gear, and it's going to put drag on it. So kind of a fun little thing. All right, give it a test before you go much further, and then we can just walk backwards on this. We have the spool, a little piece of line on a spool. I'll just got a favor, get that piece off of there best I can. I'm going to use the micro pliers to kind of break it at the knot. And when you're working on a bench on a lot of reels, get rid of that monofilament as soon as you can. It's unfortunate, but that monofilament gets stuck in other places and sometimes gets into reels you're working on. Take your spool. Now this is going to lock, so I was kind of interested in terms of why that had a lot of grease on it. I guess you can put a little bit of grease on it for whatever reason, but this stud is going to lock it to the case. This is not going to move. Bring it down and make sure that it goes in the hole. And get your quarter pin, put that back in. And we're just down to 2 pieces. We've already oiled the trip mechanism on the back end side. We can take that spring assembly off so that you can get the rectangular slot properly installed. You can bring this tie down nut back in. Go for the screwdriver I was using before. Tighten that down. So a lot of folks ask why I don't work on a lot of these, and the answer is pretty simple. I don't see a lot of these. I've set this channel up to let it be a view over my shoulder in my shop, so you're seeing what's coming into my shop. I don't get many of these. I think Scott knows that. I think that's why Scott sent that to me. All right, we have our stud out. That will collect the line as it comes in through the spool. To release that, we want to push down on our trip lever. You can see that it's retracted. That allows the line to go out without catching on that. And then when you turn your reel, it kicks that back out. Well, that's the service of this reel. It's the Abumatic 330, and we've taken you start to finish on how to do one of these. We started by getting the schematic. I always try to do that. We got the schematic for the reel that was available online. We knew what we were in for. We showed you how to take this reel apart, how to clean it. The towel is kind of evidence of that. How to inspect the pieces and parts, how to re-oil or re-lube and reassemble and keep this reel working. And we also talked a little bit about some unique functions like the brake over here and how this reel operates. I hope you've enjoyed that. To our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you do to keep us safe. I do appreciate that. And while I see our old friend COVID appears to be making a comeback, so thank you for everything you do and helping us with that as well. All right, this is one example. I encourage you to subscribe to see all of the types of reels and projects that I'm working on. And if you do subscribe, please use the notification button. To everyone, please stay safe. Enjoy the art of fishing reel repair, but more importantly, get out there and go fishing. That's what these things are intended to do. Don't make these shelf sitters. Get them on a rod, line them up, go catch some fish. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.